Hello my loves, welcome back to the channel. In today's tutorial we're learning how to make a spiral flounce. So I have my fabric folded into two. One, this upper part is the main fabric and the other one is the lining. It's the same satin fabric. I want to use the same fabric as fabric and lining. Now to get my flounce, I'm going to fold my fabric into two because I want to get the midpoint of this fabric. Okay, so note that I have folded my fabric into two already, or you can just cut your fabric and also cut your lining and place them on top of each other. Now if you're working with a light fabric, you can as well interface your fabric before you start making your flounce. Okay, so just interface your gum stay on the fabric, you get, before you start cutting out the flounce. So I'll also go ahead and fold it into two along the other side to also get me the midpoint of the fabric. Now note that what I'm folding is my fabric and lining. In this case I have 2 yards of fabric. I'm using 1 yard for lining and 1 yard for the main fabric. They are the same material, the same fabric, and that is because the flounce is going to be showing on two sides, so I don't want to have lining showing. I want to use the exact fabric I'm using. Do you get? But if you're working with Ankara or anything, you can always use lining, right? So that is what I'm cutting out. I'm cutting out the flounce for the main fabric and the lining. So I'm also going to use my chalk to highlight the midpoint. So when I fold my fabric into two, it's going to make a crease line on the fabric that will indicate that is the midpoint. So that is what I have just done. Now for this tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and cut this fabric into half. I shared it into half because I need a flounce on the left and on the right. So I just cut half of the fabric so that I'll use one for the left and one for the right. That way I'm going to have my flounce equal on all sides. You get, I was already cutting the flounce, but I decided to distribute the fabric evenly, right? So from the midpoint of my fabric, I've already showed us how to get the midpoint. I'm going to mark 1 inch all around it. You can see 1 inch all around. So I'll just go ahead and connect them in form of a circle. So now this other side, you can see I'm just going to come down by 4 inches, and that is the length I want for my flounce. So if you want a flounce of 1 inch, come down by 1 inch. If you want a flounce of 2 inches, 3.5, 5 inches, that is dependent on the style you're working on. So I want my flounce to be 4 inches long, so I'm just going to go ahead and mark 4 inches all around after that point. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm just marking 4 inches all around. Okay, so after each marking I've made along the 4 sides of this line that I've just made, I'll just be connecting it like so. I see what I'm doing, so just keep connecting to this other point. You can see I also connect the other point. Just make sure that you're connecting all the markings that you have made in form of a circle. You know, it's a spiral flounce, so it's just going to go around in circles. So when I've gotten to this point, I'll go ahead and keep marking my 4 inches. You can see, so I'll come down here. I'm measuring it to be sure that I have exactly 4 inches, so I don't want to lose that touch. So you can see I'm marking 4 inches all around it. So that is why you need to get the midpoint of your fabric and draw a straight line across the midpoint, just so that you'll be able to follow it accordingly. So you can see I'm marking just for 4 inches all around, like so. Okay, so now what I did to get my fabric, remember I'm working with 2 yards of satin fabric, and a satin fabric is 60 inches long. So I divided into two, so I have 30 inches for the front, for one side of the flounce, 30 inches for the other side of the flounce. Now the width is still 2 yards of fabric. Do you get? Which means that I have 1 yard for the main fabric and 1 yard for the lining. I hope you understand that, so that you don't get confused. Okay, I'm working with 2 yards of satin fabric, and along the length of satin we have 60 inches. So I divided that into two, so that I have 30 inches for the left, 30 inches for the right for my flounce. Okay, because I want to attach it on two sides. Now the fabric I'm working with is 2 yards, which means I have 1 yard for my satin or my main fabric and 1 yard for my lining. Okay, so that is what I've done. Right, so now that I'm done connecting all of those points, all of those 4 inches points, so if you want more, you can just go ahead and mark. You can see, just extend it if you want more. So from here, I don't have any more fabric. I'll just go ahead and make a straight line at that point. Then I'll start cutting out my flounce. You can see. So this is how you get your flounce. Just determine the midpoint of your fabric, make a circle around it, 1 inch around it. Then from that 1 inch, start marking out the length of the flounce that you want. And from there, everything just comes out really nice. Okay, so you don't need to start folding your fabric like you want to cut a flare and all of those things. So this one is easier and it gives you a more spiral, bouncy, beautiful look. Okay, so you can see how I'm cutting. I'm not going to be increasing the speed of this so that you can see exactly how to cut it. You're welcome to this channel, and if this is your first time, I say a very big welcome, a very warm welcome to you. My name is Noni, and here on this channel I upload sewing tutorials. Might not be every week, but I try to upload sewing tutorials once in a while. Okay, so I encourage you, or I'm pleading with you to subscribe if you like the kind of content I'm uploading, and turn on your post notifications so that each time I upload, like it's not always regular, but when I upload, so that you will just be able to receive the notifications. And to the people that have always been making it happen, my existing subscribers, thank you so much. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for tuning in. I love you guys so much. I really, really appreciate all the love that have shown me on this channel. May the Almighty bless you abundantly. All right, so I'm still cutting out my flounce, and you can see that it's becoming to look spiral. Now the thing you have to do at this point is to go ahead and pin, because you don't want to scatter this. That is why we call the lining and the fabric at the same time. You can see that breeze, wasabi breeze is already blowing this thing. I want to give me headache. So you're just going to go ahead and pin at this point. Okay, even as I'm not pinning now, please just go ahead and pin this down, because by the time you take out, you can see they brought my pin for me. You get, so you need to pin this around, hold the fabric to the lining. That is the reason why I placed the lining first and placed the main fabric on it. That's why I'm using the same thing as lining. Okay, because it's difficult to cut out lining for a spiral flounce. You get, I don't know how you're going to go and place lining on this jaga thing, all this rogo thing that we are cutting out. How you now place lining on it and cut it out, it's just going to give you migraine. You get, so that's why we place the lining and the fabric together, then we make the spiral flounce. That way both of them have gone together. Now if you want to attach interfacing, the best thing is to attach it before you start cutting out your spiral flounce. Okay, so on your main fabric or on your lining, you go ahead and use interfacing on it before you even start getting your midpoint and start drawing the spiral flounce. You get, so that is why I am pinning this down to hold the fabric and lining together. Now I'm not using interfacing because I'm working with a more stable fabric, which is doll face satin. Doll face is quite it's a bit stable, and I'm still using the same thing as lining, so that is why I'm not going ahead to use interfacing. And I'll also be using crinoline to give it a more bouncy and wavy look. You get that? So that is what I have just done. Please make sure you pin. You can see I'm pinning this around to secure it, because the moment you are done cutting and this thing separates, you're going to be battling with it to fix it or fuse it all back together. So at any point, make sure that you pin to hold it. I cannot overemphasize the importance of pinning your flounce together. Please do not forget that. Right, so now that I'm done pinning, I'm just going to go ahead and keep cutting now, because my confidence is now high. Anything that wants to happen, let it now happen. I have pinned it together. Bata continue sewing it the next day. Do you get? Now this is what happens. Sometimes you're midway cutting and something comes up and you leave it, and somebody will just come and move it around. But if you pin it together, you're not going to have that issue. So that's it. So keep cutting till you get to this point. You get to this point, you can see, and there is no more to cut. You get, you get that to that point where you made the 1 inch circle. All right, so that's the point you get to, and from there you cut. Okay, that is where you started making your flounce from, after the 1 inch circle that you made. So from there you just go ahead and cut. Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, mamas and papas, beautiful people of the YouTube world, this is what the flounce looks like. Okay, so it's already wavy on its own, so imagine that you just attach this, but we're going to be adding icing on the cake. Okay, we're just adding meat to that rice, adding salad to that jollof. We're going to be using crinoline to top it up, to make it more wavy, more spiral, more beautiful. Alright, so these are the crinolines I have. Crinolines are in different sizes, so dependent on the size or the length of your flounce, it will all help you to choose the length of crinoline to use. So I have here on my table a crinoline of 2.5 inches length, a crinoline of 3 inches length, and the one of 1 inch length. Now the length of my flounce is 4 inches, so I'm going to go ahead and work with that of 2 inches, because by the time I join my crinoline, I attach my crinoline to the fabric, I still want to have space, enough space, okay, at the top of the fabric, so that I don't have the crinoline poking into my seam allowance. Do you get? So I'm going to be using 2.5 inches. That's what I'm using. So that's the crinoline I'm going to use. Now I have a detailed tutorial here on this channel on how you can attach crinoline to your peplum. Now this one is attaching crinoline to a flounce. It's the same procedure. Okay, it's nothing different. Just place the crinoline at the edge of the fabric and just start stitching it with 1/2 inch seam allowance. You can see, then as you're sewing, you're making sure that you're not pulling, you're not dragging the crinoline, because if you push it or pull it, it's going to lose its elasticity and it's not going to come out wavy and bouncy anymore. Okay, so you're just going to go ahead and keep stitching like this. You can see, keep on stitching like this till you get to the end of the flounce. Right, so I'm done attaching the crinoline to the flounce. I'll just go ahead and take out my pins. So you can see everything is just getting scrunchy. Is this crunchy? Getting all curled up, all rolling, all loving, all dovey. Alright, so just at this point, take out all your pins. Now that the pins are out of the way, we're going to flip this together. Okay, flip it to the right side. Please, you're not going to top stitch on the lining for this one. You're going to pull it together. Okay, sorry, I took this out of focus. So just pull it, you can see, get it back to the right side. You can see, then I'm going to top stitch on it. I'm not top stitching on the lining, just fold it like so. Then you go and top stitch on both the fabric and the lining together. I hope you get that. So you can also go and iron this now, but I really don't like to introduce so much heat to my crinoline. It's plastic and it melts. So instead of going to iron, I'm going to top stitch on it like so. Okay, fold it to the right side and go and top stitch with like 1/8 of an inch all around. It is going to hold, it's going to be firm. You won't even need to be ironing it any longer. Okay, but if you want to still iron, you can go ahead and iron, but please iron with very low heat. Very low heat, I beg you. Right, so I'm done top stitching on it. You can see how wavy and bouncy it looks already. Okay, so that's what crinoline does to whatever you add it to. It just gives it a bouncy and a wavy look. Now that is not done, I still want this to look more wavy and bouncy, so I'm just going to go and pleat it. You can see, so I just go ahead and pleat. So when you pleat, you get a more wavy and bouncy look. So on the dress, I'll join it from the shoulder. So I'll just measure from the front half length to the back half length. Okay, take that measurement. So that's what I'm going to be pleating my flounce into. Alright, so if you have from the front half length to the back half length, if you have like 30 inches, you're going to pleat your your flounce to 30 inches. Okay, now for the dress, I just join it at the shoulder alone. Okay, I've not joined the sides. That way you can easily attach your flounce. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and pleat round my flounce, and I'm doing a box pleat, also known as casing pleat. okay, so that it's going to give me more waves, right? So box split, but you can actually do your normal pleating. It's still going to come out the same. Now before you do this pleating, just make sure you go ahead and serge, weave or overlock the sides of your of your flounce. Okay, you're going to weave the sides and the upper part. You can see mine is clean. I have used my serger to serge all around it. Okay, you don't want to have it looking tacky and you now start looking for trimmings to cover up your work. You get to make sure that you go ahead and overlock the edges of your flounce. So I'll keep pleating till I get to the edge. Remember that you're going to pleat this to the measurement you have from your front half length to your back half length, or to wherever you want to attach the flounce to. Okay, so I'm done pleating and you can see how wavy and bouncy the edges are because I did my box pleat. So now it's time to fix this on your fabric. So come with me on the next tutorial to see how to attach the flounce to your dress. See you. Bye.